Yo, what's up guys? It is Burzinator from Amplified Aesthetics, and I have a great video for you today about how to stop your cold hands and cold feet from happening. Specifically, there are 3 things that you can do in order to get them out of there, eliminate it, warm them up, feel a lot better. Now you might be wondering, especially if you've been following my channel for a while, why am I talking about cold hands and cold feet? Like, I talk about metabolism, I talk about raising your metabolism, increasing your health, and moving out of that stress state into the recovered and relaxed state. So what do cold hands and cold feet have to do with that? Well, the answer is that as soon as you feel that your hands and your feet get cold, it's because blood is being diverted away from your extremities and towards your muscles and your brain because of some sort of stress response that's being activated. Think about it if you were out in the wild and you saw a lion. Immediately your stress response would want to activate in order to help your muscles to move you away from that situation, help your brain think a little bit better so that you can find avenues that you can get out of that dangerous situation. Now the problem is that when that stress response lasts for a long time, it can be really negative, and especially when it's not paired with physical activity, as is the case when you eat something and you feel your hands and feet get cold, or just generally if you're always existing in that state of stress, then you're always going to have the cold hands and cold feet. I know some people that literally from wake until they go to sleep at night, it's literally cold hands, cold feet. So the best thing you can do is start to pay attention to what is causing cold hands and feet, what causes them to warm up, specifically what foods cause them to warm up, because our diet is the most powerful thing we have in order to shut down the stress response, increase our metabolisms, and improve our overall health. So the goal is clear now. We want to warm up our hands and feet, and that is a sign that we are not in a state of stress. The more you are not in a state of stress, the more you are in a recovered, relaxed state, then the more your metabolism is able to rise, the more your body is able to relax and increase all the positive hormones like thyroid, testosterone, progesterone, pregnenolone, all of those good hormones, they will only rise in the rested state. So the more you can keep your hands and feet warm, the less of a stress response you have. So with that, let's dive into the first thing that you can do, and that is correct your fluid balance issues. And that also involves the 4 stress minerals: sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, most specifically sodium. So what am I talking about here? What's the issue? The issue is that in a low metabolism stress state, you are constantly losing sodium. Adrenaline and cortisol will spike, but your body is constantly losing all 4 of those minerals really, but your body wants to hold on to sodium. So what's happening is your adrenals are releasing aldosterone, which is one of the stress hormones. And that is signaling your body to hold on to more sodium, even though the stress hormones are depleting it. Now, the downside of that is that you're holding on to sodium at the expense of the other 3, of calcium, potassium, and magnesium. So generally, all 4 of those minerals are going to be depleted, but sodium is the one that your body's trying to hold on to. So because the minerals are low and because sodium is low, your blood volume starts to decrease the further and further you start to push into that stress state, into the low metabolism state. And so as your blood volume decreases, all of your extracellular fluid volume decreases as well. And extracellular fluid is the fluid that exists outside of your cells, as opposed to intracellular fluid, which is the fluid that's inside of the cells. So blood makes up about 1/5 of the extracellular fluid in your body. So one of the biggest steps you can take towards improving your metabolism is increasing the extracellular fluid volume. And the way you do that is by concentrating the fluids instead of diluting them. So if you're drinking a lot of water, lots and lots and lots of water, you're constantly peeing out those minerals and diluting the soup that is your entire extracellular fluid base, your body. So let's go further with that analogy, with the soup analogy. If you created some sort of soup with, you have your meat, you have the spices in it, you have maybe something else that you've added, gelatin or something like that. If you add too much water to that soup, it's going to be diluted. It's not going to taste right. And on the flip side, if it's too concentrated, it's not going to taste right either. It's going to be too spicy. The flavors are going to be overbearing. So what you want to do is have the right blend of fluid to spices and to meat and to whatever other ingredients you're including in the soup. The same thing is true of your body, of your extracellular fluid. You don't want to be drinking tons and tons of water and diluting those minerals. And you also, it's not a problem in the low metabolism state as much, but you wouldn't also want to become dehydrated and concentrate them too much. Like I said, in the low metabolism state, you're constantly losing those minerals. So one of the first steps you can do is replenish them as much as you can. Eat more sodium, eat more magnesium, calcium, potassium, just get more of those minerals in. And then in addition to that, stop drinking so much water. If If you're drinking more water, you're diluting those minerals that you're eating. And by shifting that ratio of more minerals, less water, you start to build that fluid back up so that you actually have more volume in your blood and more volume in the extracellular fluid. And one last point that you can actually use to help even further increase it is to use carbs as well. Carbs attract water into the muscle cells, into the liver cells, wherever they're stored. And by absorbing the water into the cells, the extracellular fluid has less water diluting those minerals, and those minerals can build up a little bit more and increase the volume. And what you're going to notice is that after meals that have lots of salt, lots of carbs, and very low fluid, and assuming enough total calories as well, you're going to feel your hands and your feet start to warm up big time. And it's really awesome when that happens, because it actually feels relaxing. You have this overwhelming sense of peace, this calmness, and basically what's happening is your body's getting a break from that constant barrage of cortisol and adrenaline and aldosterone that it's normally under, that's causing that low metabolism state. You're finally getting a break, you're finally getting to recover, and this allows your metabolism to start to rise. And that brings me to my second point, which I just kind of touched on with the carbs there, is your carb to protein ratio balance of any individual meal, but also of your diet on a whole. So the reason this is important is that protein by itself will induce a cortisol response if it's not paired with carbs. What's happening is that protein is insulinogenic, meaning that when you eat protein, the amino acids, certain ones will cause an insulin response. If you're eating a lot of protein and no carbs, then this insulin is going to push the blood sugar in your blood into cells, lowering your blood sugar. When your blood sugar gets too low, activate a stress response. Your body has to try to get that sugar back up, try to release cortisol to turn protein into sugar, releasing adrenaline to turn fat into energy so that it can stop using so much of the blood sugar and it can spare that blood sugar. So what you really want to do is make sure that anytime you're eating protein, you're pairing it with enough carbs so that you don't get that drop in blood glucose, that the insulin response is appropriate for the amount of carbs that you've eaten along with the protein. Typically, I like to aim for somewhere between 2 to 4 times the amount of carbs to protein within a meal. Now, I like to set protein levels for the day around 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. So you can see that this puts your carbs up to 1.6 to 3.2 grams per pound of body weight. For some people that might sound kind of high, especially if you're coming off of like really low carb diets or paleo or something like that. But carbs are just super crucial for your metabolism, for a lot of different areas of your health, and it's just important to always be making sure that you're eating enough carbs. So I highly urge you to try to start steering more in towards the direction, including more carbs in your meals. And what you'll notice is that as long as you're including a lot of salt and a lot of those other minerals and a lot of carbs in relation to the protein and a little fluid, then all of those things combine together to create the warm hands, the warm feet, shut down the stress response, and improve your situation. All right, and finally, the very last point is something that I actually just realized recently for myself. Never even crossed my mind. I assumed that I was perfectly fine, and that is food allergies or food sensitivities. I thought I did not have any kind of food allergy, food sensitivity. I didn't have any symptoms. I didn't have the indigestion. I didn't have, anything that overtly would tell me, yes, you have a food sensitivity. But what I noticed is that after certain meals that were high carb, especially high carb to protein ratio, high salt, very low fluid, I would notice my hands and feet like instantly ice up. And I had no clue why that was happening. It just didn't make sense to me until I started to really analyze the exact food components of every single meal I was eating. And what I found was that dairy, specifically the casein protein, was causing my hands and feet to get cold. And so I made a connection that I have food sensitivity to casein. Now, I probably should have already known that because when I was a kid, I had an allergy test, and one of the things that showed up was a slight allergy to milk, which now I know is probably from the casein. And so it all kind of tied together, and it was something that even though I had no overt symptoms of an allergy to milk, I could tell that my body was still activating a stress response, and that was holding back my efforts at improving my metabolism by activating that stress response during meals when I should have been recovering and relaxing and moving that metabolism upwards. So what I highly urge you to do is start paying attention, like I said, to your hands and your feet, especially after meals. About half an hour to 3-4 hours afterwards, that's kind of the window after a meal. Start testing foods, especially foods that you feel like maybe you might be sensitive to. Have a meal with lots of dairy in it, for example. See what happens to your hands and feet. Have a meal with lots of gluten in it. See if that hurts your hands and feet. That's also something that I'm trying to cut out right now, just to experiment with it. You know, life's a big experiment. Gotta, you know, play with the diet and see what happens. My family, all the women in my family have celiac disease, so there's a chance that maybe I have something like that, but not entirely sure. Now, one last point with the food allergies and the food sensitivities is that in the low metabolism state, they are highly common versus in the high metabolism state where they're not very common at all. In the low metabolism state, your body is constantly under that stress and your resistance to stress is really, really low. So what happens is those foods that might have a little bit of a trigger for you are gonna have a much bigger response. For example, people with low thyroid, hypothyroid people, have 40 times the amount of adrenaline than people in the high metabolism, high thyroid state. As soon as you help to relax your body, get recovered, move your metabolism up so that your body temperature is up in the 98-degree area underarm when you're waking up, then what you're going to notice is that a lot of those allergies that you had or food sensitivities you had either will completely go away or won't really have as much of an effect as they would have before. I've even heard stories of people with full-blown autoimmune diseases like celiac disease finding that when their metabolism and when the temperature goes up, either from supplementing with thyroid or just doing it naturally, that the symptoms completely go away, which is it's pretty exciting because, you know, people with autoimmune diseases often think that that's just how it is. They're going to have that for the rest of their life, but this offers a little bit of hope. Not saying it's definitely going to, but it's definitely worth looking into if you are suffering from an autoimmune disease. Now, hopefully all in all, throughout this video, you started to see my mental framework of how I approach your diet and how I'm approaching your metabolism, especially you know, just using the data from having cold hands and cold feet, how your body responds to different foods and things like that. Treat it as an experiment, okay? While, you know, there's averages out there and while there's statistics, for you, N equals 1. There's one you, that's it. Your individual circumstances are not gonna be what the individual circumstances are for all the other billion people in the world. So start paying attention to exactly what causes your hands and feet to freeze up. Start paying attention to what meals really sit well with you, which ones don't. Start measuring your body temperature. Treat your body like an experiment and figure out exactly what the most optimal diet is going to be for you. I have a lot of, you know, resources and tips and helps that advice that can help guide you in the right direction, but ultimately you have to experiment with it yourself and get that feeling for it. So before I sign off here, one last thing is that the temperature of your environment will affect how cold your hands and feet get. I'm obviously in Florida, as you can see, in the beach, and so when I'm outside in the heat, I won't notice my hands and feet freeze up as much. However, because I've been paying attention to it enough, I can still tell when that stress response is activated. My hands and feet might be warm, but they're not that full of blood feeling, that like really hot, I'm not getting that relaxed state that I would normally get. And contrarily, if you are in a cold environment all the time, your hands and feet are very likely to be cold even if you're not activating a stress response. Although I could also argue that the cold environment that you are in is a stress, so maybe you are under a stress response. But there's also, again, pay attention to it, there's a difference there too. I feel that my feet are full of blood and that just the tips of them are cold because you know, it's a response to that cold exposure. But generally, still relaxed, the food's doing what it should be doing. Start paying attention to that stuff, start making these connections for yourself, and you're gonna notice, you're gonna be able to find the right diet for you so that you can improve your situation, improve your metabolism, and improve your health overall in the best ways. And that's all I got for this video. I hope that you got a lot out of it. If you did, please subscribe, please like the video, please share it. It helps me. I'm trying to grow this channel, trying to get this good information out there so that more people can be experimenting with their personal situation, their personal diets, their personal lifestyles and trainings, so that they can improve their health to the maximum and increase their metabolism to the point where they're burning just tons and tons of calories, feeling relaxed and confident, no anxiety, nothing like that. So the more you help, the more I can help, basically. So let me know also in the comments if there's any specific topics you want to hear, anything else you want to learn about. I would be happy to film videos and write blog posts about them. And yeah, I think that's all I got for today. So, all right, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.